Agency members Draymond,
Here.
Quintero,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Yusefian,
Here.
and Chairman Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the March 10, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, March 5, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Item 4 is approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
If there are no corrections or objections, the minutes of Tuesday, March 3rd will be approved as submitted. Next item, please.
Next item is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Redevelopment Agency may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for investigation and report.
I have a card from Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon, Chairman Najarian, members of the Redevelopment Agency and city staff. My name is Herbert Milano. Well, I'm not going to be quoting Shakespeare this time around. I think I'll wait until Mr. Draymond becomes head of the redevelopment again. So what I would like to do, though, is ask for some information. Given that the Redevelopment Agency has as its purview the economic development of Glendale, I was wondering if there are reports that you will be asking for with regard to the shops and the merchants and the situation on the along Brand Boulevard. I'm kind of interested in finding out how these shops are holding up in these hard economic times. And I think it would be nice to have a month-to-month report on how they're doing. Financially, whether they're, on the verge of closing up, whether they are in need of assistance, whether they're in need of promotion. And of course, as you know, a few years back, I was during the phase of the reconstruction of Brand Boulevard, I had made a suggestion that we could promote perhaps from the city employees, to shop and assist, and do their shopping here in Glendale. I had, from time to time, presented the idea that perhaps those employees earning over $100,000 could think of buying their next car here at the Brand Boulevard of Cars, and maybe even taking a tally of how many employees have actually bought cars here in Glendale. But my interest today is more along the lines of the small shop owner, the small restaurateur, the independent businesses along Brand and how they're doing, so that we can get an assessment of, whether the situation for them is getting worse or better. I would appreciate a reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond.
Well, this is in response to Mr. Milano's comment, actually, at the appropriate time. In 2005 or so, when there was another city election going on, and I had some conversations with council member, then at the time with council member Yusefian, when I was president of the Shopping Park Association in Montrose. And I shared with him concerns of not just businesses in the district that I was elected to represent, but also those concerns that had been expressed to me by other business districts throughout the city, including the Downtown Brand Merchants Association, Kenneth Village, Adams Square, Spar Heights, Foothill Corridor, and so on. And the question was loosely related to Americana. It was prompted by the anticipation of Americana moving forward. But it wasn't specifically about that. It was, what will the council do? What will the agency do? What will the city do to keep a finger on the pulse of what is going on with small business in Glendale? And what will you do to make sure that small business in general is not faltering? Prompted that was a gentleman from Caruso affiliated at the time coming to a board meeting of the MSPA, the Montrose Shopping Park Association, and saying that their studies showed about a 10% downturn in business there as a result of the opening of this facility, but then after a year or so that there would be revitalization. So my question, you may recall, Mr. Yusefian, was that, and you gave me an assurance, which I then took back to those very people I mentioned, that the council the agency, the city, would periodically take the pulse of small business to make sure that we aren't losing businesses, falling through the cracks, and so on. I have to say, I agree with Mr. Milano's request, suggestion, however you want to categorize it, that we should be doing that. We should be doing that having nothing to do with Americana. We should be doing that because we're in a difficult economic time, and that is why you are seeing two of you have the opportunity to come to a meeting of the Small Business Summit, Small Business Task Force Summit, and see and hear some of the concerns that were expressed. I do think we need to do this. I don't know what the process would be, but I would also like to ask that we do consider that, and that we make it ongoing.
Mr. Quintero, Mr. Yusef.
The tax reports come to us quarterly or quarterly, right? Including the small business. It's always quarterly. Well, we could do it on a quarterly basis for sure, and we could break out the different blocks in mid-brand.
Mr. Quintero, yes. In fact, we have those set up. We refer to them as geos. They're geographical ranges, and we have them for each of the blocks in the downtown. We have them for the small business districts and for the fashion center. So we can do that with the data that we have.
I guess, Mr. Chair, my concern is this. I know we can collect the data. I have every confidence we can collect the data. My question is, what do we do with that data? With all due respect, it's not just such a matter of Mr. Lansdane handing us data and we say, Spar Heights is down, Kenneth Village is down, or Spar Heights is marginally up. What do we do with that with regard to those questions back in 2005? What will we do to ensure, to help with business retention, business creation, and so on, based on that data?
Well, I think short answer is that'll be up to us, and I think there's clearly an interest in this, so perhaps we can place this on the agenda when the appropriate information comes in. Let me go to Mr. Yusefian and then Mr. Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chair, what I was going to say, to be honest with you, I really am not even interested on the numbers. I already know what the numbers are going to be. They're going to show a downturn. We already know. So that's an exercise in futility. In my opinion, I think what we should do is we should just go out there and prepare a nice 30-second spot. Go out there and just run them on television. It's amazing what you can get today on charter within our area, and you could have in all these different channels. Spots are running from $18 to $20 a piece. So we could have a general commercial that basically says, "Come to Glendale," and accentuate some of those areas. Have a little shot from Montrose, have a little shot from downtown Branch, have a little shot from different areas of the city, Adams Square, and say, these are our areas, come and support this. The merchants are waiting for you, and so on and so forth. Remind people to come out and support those organizations. I think we need to do that. We really have to go out there and do that. We have done that in the past for the auto dealers, and they have turned out to be very instrumental in raising their revenues. And I think this is one of those opportunities that instead of sitting in here and figuring out how much they're short, how much they're up, we know they're short. Does anybody has any questions about our money being low? We all know. The whole country is like that. So I think maybe we should put this thing on the agenda and have the staff go out there and check with Charter, which I think lately I found out it's probably owned by Warner Communication. So we'll find out what the costs are and come back and let us know what type of budget we need to allocate, how many spots for how long. when you come back with, you have that information to give us.
Okay, Mr. Starbird, then Mr. Weaver.
I was just going to say we'll bring you back a number of ideas. Our neighboring city, Burbank, has developed and has run what I understand is a very effective and relatively inexpensive promotional shop local program, and I've asked Phil some time ago with Ken Hitz to take a look at that program and see if we can bring that sort of an idea here to Glendale. We'll bring you a number of ideas.
Mr. Weaver.
I remember when Orange Street Garage was being constructed, the merchants on Orange were going to be hurt, and the council decided to give money to those merchants to tide them over during their tough times. And during the construction, they were back asking for more money. We learned a lesson. Once you start making a handout, if you go that direction, times stay bad, construction, economy, whatever, they're going to be back looking for more monies. As the recipient said, we know the results are going to show that all the businesses virtually, except maybe Porto's, has a downturn. Porto's never does. But the others are. I've talked to some of the merchants. Yeah, and they're hurting. Where's the street traffic? Where's that? Anything that is brought back by staff is going to have the bottom line of spending money to help. While we're sitting here trying to be fiscally conservative and cut, where's the balancing act by spending, I guess, reserves to promote or do whatever when we're cutting the budget as it is? Everybody's in a world of hurt, including the city, unless you want to go into all the reserves. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can go back with a report, but what are going to be the low-cost ways of getting more people to come to Glendale in these times to spend their money in Glendale? I think it's a tough sell. You've listened even when Rick Caruso spoke on KNX radio, I believe it was, a few days ago. He was talking too many people have businesses, they're undercapitalized, and they don't do enough marketing of their stores. In his case, he talks about he has to bring the customers into the Americana and the Grove, and he says in turn they will spend some money there. So if we're the owner, say, of mid-brand, how are we going to get the people in so they will spend the money? How are we going to market cheaply to Southern California, come to Glendale, not Pasadena, not Burbank? It may be very tough. I'm not trying to pour water on it, dampen it. Let's do it. But I'm just afraid this is where we're going to end up at the end of the line.
Frank.
Well, for me, before we go with a staff-driven report, those noted retail experts at redevelopment, let's get, and I don't mean that in a bad sense, let's get the small business task force involved in this. They've been having a series of meetings, or actually members of the different chambers involved there. Let's see if we can coordinate with them, because they've been talking about some of the same thing, not just television, but internet campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I hate to just have a spurt of activity and then it stops 6 weeks later, it stops a month later, a quarter later. Let's come up with some strategies, because I think this group is doing some good work, and let's coordinate with them is what I'm saying.
Mr. Draymond.
Well, I completely agree with that. What I disagree with is the idea that for the City of Glendale's redevelopment agency to be sitting here having a discussion about, oh my goodness, doing something related to redevelopment that isn't a discussion of building a building, taking one down, building another building, or development issues, and actually getting into a different kind of redevelopment, which is investing attention and focus of our citizens and citizens in neighboring cities into promoting, my goodness, our own retail resources that exist in the city. Almost makes me want to faint, because I've been waiting for a decade to hear that. But in any case, I support what my colleague Mr. Quintero and my colleague Mr. Yusefian have had to say on this. We do need to do that. It isn't a matter, as I said, about collecting the data. We can collect data. It's what do we do? I haven't heard anybody in this room so far suggest that we just start handing out cash. I don't think anybody's talking about that. There are a whole lot of things that we can do through our normal processes that we have that we just don't do. I've been advocating the promotion of retail venues throughout this city as destinations. We don't do that. We don't do that in City Views. We don't do that on GTV6. We don't do that, as you point out, Mr. Yusefian, through brokering ads on cable. We don't do that through a program of just internally encouraging our employees to shop here. We don't do any of that. And so I think we need to start doing that. It took an outside group to start bringing all the merchants associations together in one room to talk about common solutions. The city didn't do that. I mean, I happen to do that because I come out of that. I come here from that world of small merchants association. Not so small, actually. 216 businesses is by no means a small mall. But in any case, that is. I wholeheartedly agree. I know that we can't. We're probably driving Mr. City Attorney nuts with this right now because it's sounding like a agendized item. However, I would recommend we agendize it and have a report and then talk about this.
Okay, thank you. I think you heard what was said, Mr. Lanzafame. Let's move on to the next item. Business agenda, none. Any member comments? Agency member. I'm sorry.
Well, Ms. Adam, but I have one quick comment to Mr. Speaker, who, just to answer a question from earlier that has to do with not Shakespeare, but ancient Hebrew, I think, and the answer to you, Mr. Milano, is yes and yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There's no new business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
We are adjourned.